get started, um, the I wanted this to be a little free form and conversational. I want to show a couple of things that are relatively new in Pricebook Pro, which is configurable services. Do a quick walkthrough of what that looks like in practice, and potentially do some Q&A around that. So briefly touch on a recent change we've made with unlocking the service names and codes, and talk through that for a moment. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'd also like to test some thinking for next year in the Pricebook Pro space. If you guys are interested in hearing, some of our high level thinking of what some of our bigger investments may look like, I'd love to kind of test that thinking with you, and also want to have time for any Q&A, any questions, any thoughts, any feedback. Does that feel like a good agenda? Is there anything that anyone wants to add on to that beyond what I just talked through?
No, that sounds good.
Great. I'll share my screen. So the first thing I want to go through is configurable services. I think this is a pretty cool feature, and I think it's kind of the first iteration that will continue to get investment and get stronger and more powerful as time goes on. There's two iterations of this. There's a core price book that everyone has access to, which is basically manually built. And I'll walk through what that looks like just to kind of cement the flow. And then Pricebook Pro basically does it for you. Will automatically link your specific materials or your vendor materials to your Pricebook Pro service. And on top of that, it will automatically learn. So if your technicians are adding specific materials to a service when they're selling an estimate that isn't linked through configurable services, we'll start to make sure that starts showing up in kind of the quick add view over time if it's something that's consistently being sold. So a good straightforward example here is the capacitor replacement. So let's go into the 7.5 microfarad capacitor service as installer replace. If we go into, let's look at the links materials in the inline edit. So we've got the Pricebook Pro generic 7.5 microfarad capacitor material linked to this service. We'll go to that material specifically, and I'll show you what the configured material looks like, and then I'll show you how that shows up in the estimates. So essentially, so there's now a new tab here, configurable material, and you'll see that configurable material is enabled. These are off by default. You'll have to turn them on if it's something that you want to use. And there's a setting specifically for Pricebook Pro here, which is enabling TI mapping and continuous learning. What you'll see is we've got specific or vendor specific capacitors, 4 different iterations of that capacitor linked to the generic capacitor. And the way this shows up is if we go to an estimate and I go add that 7.5 microfarad capacitor service to an estimate, I was playing around with this before, it's going to ask your technician which capacitor you're going to use for that job. So you could stick with the generic capacitor for Pricebook Pro if you just want to go through the generic route. But if you want to be able to say, I'm going to use the specific, this 440 back oval, I can select that, save and add. You'll see that the service has been added and that specific material has been added. Make that material chargeable, and it'll use dynamic pricing to price accordingly to the specific material. So if you want to be charging the exact right price with exact right markup for your items rather than kind of a generic, you could do that. If you want to stick with kind of a generic material price, we have a setting to maintain that as well. So at a high level, that's kind of the walkthrough. Pricebook Pro, going back over here, if you enable TI mapping and continuous learning, it will look through your price book, through all the services that you have, and it'll see you have a 7.5 microfarad replacement service. it'll look through your materials list for your specific 7.5 microfarad materials, and it will automatically link those. So you don't have to do any of that pre-work, which saves a ton of time. You can imagine across your price book setting this up is not nothing. The continuous learning feature within configurable services is if going back to that selection view, if I'm a technician and there's a specific capacitor in this example that is not on this list that I want to use, I can click find more items and search my price book for the capacitor. Let's say this is a capacitor that's on that list, but this is the one I'm using, and I add that, add to the estimates. If the system is detecting that there's an item that's starting to get utilized that technicians are going to find, it will automatically start adding that item to this list so that technicians will have to stop looking for more. So we're essentially saying, oh, we noticed that you're selling this other item that's not in the list. We'll start adding that and making sure that it's showing up for technicians. So I'll pause there. Any questions, any thoughts?
Nothing so far.
Great. Does anyone feel like that's exciting, adds value, boring? Curious to kind of get a reaction on how you're feeling about that feature. We want to continue to make investment and strengthen the algorithm, create more flexibility so that we move beyond just materials and equipment and create attribution selection in the future, things like color variations for specific items to make estimate building even easier for technicians. So I'd love to hear if we're down the right path here. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the feedback. And Matt, I mentioned I want to go through a couple, new things that are in Pricebook Pro's configurable services. The other thing that we'll jump into now, and this is literally going to take 30 seconds, is you may have noticed that we no longer lock the name and code within Pricebook Pro. So these are now editable. It feels like a small thing, but this was actually a huge amount of architecture work in the back end. So that's why it took us so long to be able to do this and still be able to get your updates and everything to map to that. So I can now update the name. I can update the code structure. I would highly recommend that you don't go in and change, install 12-inch grab bar to a replace water heater service because we're still going to think that's a grab bar when we're pushing updates. And you can dismiss those updates, so it won't replace, any content. But if you want your updates to continue to work and to continue to generally be mapped, I would try to kind of stick to the spirit of the service. So if you just want a different name, or you have branding around what you call this name, or you don't like install, you want something else, you can do that. If you have a specific code structure that you want to align to, you can do that as well. So feels like maybe a small thing, but it was actually a pretty big deal to be able to do, and we're happy to get that out the door. Those two things are generally what's new with Pricebook Pro. We're continuing to release more trades. We actually released a roofing catalog recently. We've been adding to the light commercial side of HVAC. We have a chimney catalog in the works that we'll see in the next few months. And we're looking at expanding to garage doors sooner than later. But at the same time, we continue to add and improve the existing catalogs that exist today as well. In terms of looking into the future, ServiceTitan is moving into an aggressive planning cycle in terms of what are we going to prioritize for next year across board for the entire product. So I'd be curious to take the time to chat through a couple of high-level thinking for Pricebook and Pricebook Pro to kind of gauge temperature to feel like this is in line, add value to you, and also hear what your thoughts are on what would be cool, what would be helpful, what would be critical for the next thing. So really two big stories I want to tell, putting aside a lot of small features or small enhancements that will come along with this. For Pricebook Pro specifically, we're really exploring the idea of creating a demand-based pricing rule where we can automatically adjust your price based on things like technician capacity, what's happening with your dispatch and scheduling, potentially seasonality and weather, and then eventually maybe looking at inventory levels, within your warehouse or even, eventually within, local distributorship. So all of those factors, get built out into a TI or data science engine that can then start to adjust your price to maximize or optimize revenue for your business or optimize scheduling. And I think, think about airline tickets. Prices are always changing based on demand and what customers are willing to pay based on conditions. Same thing with Uber, with Lyft. I think we would be relatively conservative with these kinds of things. Obviously, you're not going to want to see huge swings, but I think we think that homeowners and within markets will tolerate a swing. I think we already see a lot of trades do this in general, right? HVAC is really busy in summer and you're charging more for it, and you're starting to offer discounts and reducing pricing in winter very often. And so, creating using AI to some extent to get smarter and smarter about this and reduce the workload, bring in new factors like, if a big storm is coming and it's going to affect demand on certain SKUs, we should be able to adjust for that to optimize either for maximizing revenue or maximizing labor availability. That might mean smoothing out your dispatch board as much as possible. I think the other opportunity there is integrating into some of the other Pro products. With Scheduling Pro, you have the ability to create a booking service on your website. And then we can start to do some clever things like showing which booking windows might be a little more expensive and which booking windows might be a little less expensive, and let the homeowner decide. This is really important in an emergency, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that window, or I can wait a day or two and maybe pay a little bit less. And again, we're starting to automatically even out your booking, your calendars, and based around your technician availability. And if that's something that's not up your alley, obviously that's turned off. We can also affect, with dispatch, your dispatching based on some of these factors. We could turn on and off your marketing campaigns based on what we're predicting in terms of demand. If we're seeing high demand, we could trigger a marketing campaign to get paused until demand drops back off, and then the opposite of that, if we're seeing low demand and we want to start to show them more business, we can start to automatically trigger or increase investment in certain marketing campaigns. So I'll pause there. There's really high level thinking, but that's kind of big in investment space we're thinking about. I'd be curious to get reactions there. Just catching up on the chat. Matt, do you mind clarifying the question? Does that mean Titan will update tasks that we create? Are you talking about updating the price?
Can I just talk? Because I'm not a good type.
Yeah, let's have a conversation. This isn't. This was meant to be conversational.
Okay.
I would love
I don't want to interrupt or interject while you're. I don't want to make chaos out of it.
No, I want a conversation. That's way better. If this was a little later in the day, I'd say we could all grab a beer and chat through this.
Okay, beautiful. So, at times when I've needed to, let's say the grab bar task there, like a 12-inch grab bar, let's say the 24-inch one didn't already exist. If I would want to duplicate that, it would be a locked task and wouldn't necessarily allow duplication. I could change a letter or something and get it to give me a second task, and then I could change the material or whatever, but then it would say, Titan isn't responsible for your parts now. Is the configurable material kind of a solution to that, where with dynamic price rule and configurable parts, everything gets maintained automatically?
We're definitely going in that direction. I don't want to kind of make a bold claim that, we're 100% there. But if you created, so we've got 12, this is all Pricebook Pro. We've got 12, 24, 36, 48. Let's say you duplicated 48 and made a 60-inch. And you have in your materials 3 or 4 different 60-inch grab bars from your vendors.
Yeah.
We'll be able to detect that and automatically map that.
Okay.
And I think it's worth, to be fair to everyone, we're probably at like 85 to 90% accuracy. So like if we miss something from time to time, it'd be good to just double check on that stuff. I think it's a huge advancement that we can basically automatically do that across, a couple thousand services and thousands of materials. And again, if your technicians are selecting a specific material, that's not showing up in the quick add list, it'll show up in the quick add list pretty quickly so that your technicians don't have to go dig into the price book anymore.
Okay.
I think it's pretty cool. We'll keep investing in it and make it better and better.
I love the direction this is headed. I mean, it's by all means starting to become a commoditized price book where we're just not static at all. More in alignment with what you're saying about an airline ticket price, right? If the seats are sold out, you're really gonna regret buying that last minute ticket.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily seems fair to market, but having the ability for a price swing based on demand certainly seems reasonable. I think of all good intentions, somebody will screw that up and abuse it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go into how that's managed. I don't think we'll create kind of a free-for-all situation where tornado runs through a city and something like things are 1,000% more. Like I think we'll create really conservative guardrails. And then I think we'll take 2 approaches where you can kind of turn on and off specific inputs. Like you may just want weather-based pricing adjustment. If the storm's coming through, and then set specific guardrails of like, I'm willing to go up or down 5% either way based on this factor. So we'll create some of those custom controls, and then we'll also create like an automatic just flip the switch, give us the keys, and the algorithm will take it from there. And even within that, we're thinking about kind of a slider of like conservative, medium, aggressive, or maybe just conservative, aggressive. And even within those, we would still have pretty conservative guardrails. Like I think aggressive, is maybe like 15% swing, and conservative is a 5% swing. But we also really want to make sure that we're staying on the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's fair to monetize a commodity correctly within a kind of supply and demand environment. If there's a huge, you've got 15 technicians worth of work on a few specific SKUs, and you've got 5 technicians, I think there's different ways to handle that. If pricing goes up to kind of even out demand, and if you're not going to be able to do all the jobs anyway, monetizing at the demand level, right? You're not going to be the only shop with that kind of demand for that SKU in that moment. Is a good way to do that. And I think there's other outputs that if you care less about the correct monetization, we can also control to an extent how that gets prioritized on your dispatch board, and maybe start to deprioritize or push some other appointments back that are low demand, where that customer may be willing to wait another day or two. And we still have to work those things out, right? I think there's going to be a lot of controls that have to happen for customers to be able to make decisions around that. But that's some high level thinking, and I'm really curious to see what people's reactions are. If that feels high value, feels like something that could bring in a few percentage points, better revenue, better margins, or if you feel like we're just barking up the wrong tree and there's like some major thing that's burning a hole in your pocket that you want to see us solve.
I do like it. I mean, it's like now we have the levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can assign a degree of difficulty value to each level or however we want to look at that. I think it's in alignment with that kind of thinking. Again, making it less static. That the dynamic price rule really changed how we are able to use this book entirely.
Yeah.
And the piece that's missing for me, and um, I feel like it's high level to me anyway, because it's a really big issue, is the material. There's so many mapping issues in tasks where the materials are kind of being obsolete in a lot of ways, and getting something that's relevant to me is a challenge that we face here. An example would be copper sweat fittings that are in the plumbing world that pretty much just anybody. I don't use them, but so even though they still exist and you can certainly build your price book with that type of material, I'm using pro press fittings. They're one coupling could be $7, $8 difference, just for a half-inch fitting. So we're undersold in a lot of ways, where I'm waiting for the Ferguson deal, because that's a plumbing wholesaler in my market where now I can get in commoditized pricing and get the materials replaced in our tasks. We leave a ton on the table because of that incorrectness.
So you're saying you want your vendor specific materials in your price book?
I would,
you want
yeah, I would love to have that. Yes, sir.
So when I started this part of the conversation, and I said there were two kind of big things, we went through demand-based pricing. The other thing, to me, which I think is probably the biggest opportunity across Pricebook, regardless of pro or not, is a deeply ingrained supplier price book. I think the supply chain and the price book need to merge. And this is, it's a long-term effort. There's a huge amount of work that needs to go into really doing this, but end goal and vision is, there comes a day or there's a world where you tell us what your supplier is, and we'll go build your materials and equipment for you based on what we know you're selling, right? We have your services, we know what you do. We should be able to go figure out the materials and equipment. And again, it's AI and we're early with these kinds of technologies. So maybe that's 85 to 90% done. That's still 50 hours of work saved. On top of that, it should stay linked so that anytime those items get updated, pictures, descriptions, costs, it's automatically getting updated in your price book in real time.
Yeah.
And then with that, I think there's a bunch of other like more small or less important enhancements, but I think that's kind of the top level story. That plays really well with what we just saw here with configurable services and the auto mapping, because then we start to map your vendor specific materials to your services, and your technicians start selling those things, and you're starting to really do a much better job with job costing. Every material has its cost, and you can charge the markup for each one of those, and each job is priced exactly right.
Yeah, perfect. Will the auto mapping recognize an equipment versus a material?
Yes. I hesitate because I just want to kind of go back and double check. The product manager on my team built this, but I'm nearly 100% sure that we are auto recognizing equipment as well. I don't feel comfortable saying yes, and there's like that 1% doubt in my mind. So I just want to make sure. So I'll get back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so suppliers, by the way, Ferguson, you waiting for that deal? Reach out to your CSM. We just launched a private preview there, so we're just starting to onboard a handful of customers, testing it, making sure. So we're not far away. We just got that. Catalog into ServiceTitan, and it's going through like a semi-slow rollout, but it's there. So we're close.
So if I request it, they would add it to my catalog?
they'll either add it or put you on the short list to get it pretty soon. So private preview is actually a beta, and so we limit the amount of customers that we start with, and those customers are kind of willing to test it out, make sure that everything's working right. And once we test that with a handful of customers, everything's good, we don't have any major issues, then we open it up to whoever needs or wants it. So if you're willing to participate in the private preview and want it now, in exchange for a little bit of feedback, and a little extra risk on it's brand new, is everything good? I'm sure they're looking for participants in that. If you just want something, ready to go and you don't necessarily want to do the feedback thing or the beta thing, it'll probably be a little bit of a wait. But either way, make sure that your team knows that you're ready to go if you haven't let them know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm willing to be in the beta because even if we have a mistake, with some of the static or parts that I'd like to update, I'm wrong every day anyway. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think with those two big pillars within Pricebook and Pricebook Pro, does that feel like we're aiming in the right direction for next year? Those investments make a big difference in your businesses. Is there anything that you're not hearing that you would really like to hear?
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get you to do my job for me. That's it.
Well, and I think we're probably everybody on a call is at a different place of pain
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
journey. So, we could all speak from that point, so what do I want? It would be those integrations to actual vendors. And I don't know where you guys pull from, so, I've never actually been given that response. So when you make your task, I don't know whose supply number you're grabbing, so,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it's within a couple points to where I'm buying, but in some cases, not are the right materials, not the relevant parts in a task. So when I think about next level, how do I turn my job and then turn that into an automatic PO and tie that into inventory? It's all the wrong crap anyway. I don't even want to. So, I feel in a lot of ways I'm really I'm pushing a boulder up a hill to get all that to work together, because if I go on an under sink repair, I don't want all the items that are in that. So we're configurable now. I can take things out,
Mhm.
but that is actually reducing the pain of that, bringing in my catalog so I can map the things in that I do want, and then the system's going to learn what they are. You're solving problems, man.
Yeah, I think you're kind of really catching, the exact direction, the exact pain we're trying to solve, right? And we're chipping away at it. Configurable services alone isn't gonna like blow this out of the water, but it's a huge step forward. I think for Pricebook Pro specifically, before configurable services, you get generic materials, which is great for a lot of companies that never really want to do inventory tracking, and or just want kind of quick, easy, true flat rate that's easy for the technician, and then you kind of go figure out what part was used later on. But there's a lot of demand, and it makes a ton of sense to start to bring in your supplier items, right? Today, and this kind of maps well to what I'm talking about with what what we're thinking about in terms of our major investments for next year with like a deeply ingrained supplier price book. Your price book, for the most part, you're setting up your materials and equipment yourself if you want to use your vendor stuff. And that's a lot of work. And it's pretty duplicative because all that content exists with the suppliers. And so if we can marry those two where we can get your suppliers to do most of the work, and then build your materials and equipment based on your suppliers, it just saves you a bunch of work. And we just link those things so they stay up to date to what your suppliers are doing. And so really that's where I should want to go. And with things like configurable services as a foundation to that world, and dynamic pricing as a foundation to configurable services, you can start to see the puzzle pieces getting, that have been that we've been laying over the past couple of years to get to a world where this really starts to manage itself in a really smart way. You're gonna roll your eyes at this, but the way I've been thinking about it is like I would like to get to a world where we've kind of innovated the price book so much that maybe the concept of a price book isn't the right name anymore. And so like it's probably something I shouldn't say out loud because you totally deserve to roll your eyes at that, and we're still quite a ways away. But you can kind of see how we're getting closer and closer to something like that. That's something that's more like a business manager, business advisor, or something of that extent.
I'm sorry, buddy. Chris, can you close that door for me? Because I wanna kill somebody. Okay.
Mike, the question's just a little cute. Basically, does it convert over the materials into QuickBooks when they export?
So, buddy, I'm sorry, I don't know your first name.
Eyal.
I'm sorry?
Eyal.
Okay. I have a question that may not be, and you can tell me offline if you want to change, stay on the subject you're with, but we are also working to convert so that we can get the QuickBooks integration for desktop, which is now getting pretty exciting. But with our price book, we have a challenge about how it was already configured and how it will talk to QuickBooks. They're not speaking the same language. What do you want to change?
So for the general ledger, when the invoices get exported, we're being told that the material also gets exported over, and that our only option is to unlink it from the tasks, which doesn't sound right to me.
I will be totally honest with you. You're getting into kind of the accounting world, which is a different team and different expertise, and a little bit of a scary place for me. But our team knows what they're doing. What I can do is I can make sure that I can ask that team a question and get the answer back to you, or try to connect you with the accounting team. So just so I understand it, you have the GL account linked within the price book, and then when you export the invoice to QuickBooks, is it duplicating the material, so you're getting material duplication, or is it not bringing material?
We're not exporting it yet, but the woman who's helping us do it is afraid that it's going to duplicate all of the expenses.
Okay. All right. I will. Do you mind, Matt? Just I don't know. You can direct chat me your email address.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll dig in it and try and get you an answer.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, I think we layered enough doors now.
I think I've kind of gone through everything I want to talk about. We went through configurable services and saw what that looks like, and the non-locked codes and names. We talked about what next year could look like. Is there anything else anyone wants to ask, talk about, suggest, complain about? If that's the case, then I won't hold you guys up and let you get back to your day.
It's got to be more to that. Come on, this is exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. If we could take something with the complexity of material linking, with configurable services and get through it in 10 minutes, I think that's a good thing, right? I think if it's straightforward enough to kind of understand it and talk through it and see it in that period of time.
I have a strange question about.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of versions of price books imported into Titan.
Mhm.
And now I use Pricebook Pro.
Mhm.
But all the other ones are still there. Like, it's kind of painful to me, it seems, like in the database side of it. Like and I know there's an inactive versus active
Mhm.
Do you know the actual reason for, because I've talked to a lot of Titan people, they say just leave it. We don't really want you to dump stuff. Why is that? It's just so expired.
Yeah. So a couple things. Before I answer that question, I want to ask: are you deactivating a bunch of stuff, and is it just kind of living as deactivated, and you just
Yeah.
never want to use it again, or
Yeah.
is it still active?
Deactivated.
Deactivated. Okay. So something you should know about is we do have like a ServiceTitan ability to do like a kind of a permanent deactivation where the items will still live in the database in your system, but will not even show up if you filter for inactive or within your price book. So if that's something that you're interested in, you could reach out to your CSM and ask about that. The reason we do it, the reason we do not have a delete function is the service titan specifically is essentially built around the price book. It's so deeply ingrained into accounting, inventory, purchasing, payroll, memberships. If you delete an item and remove that item entirely from record of database, you start to break historical records of a bunch of things. So previous invoices
Yeah.
from yesterday, 5 years, from 10 years ago. And that's just the way it's been architected. There's probably a middle ground where you can do a little better than inactive, where it's still like very present in your world. Maybe like a permanent inactive state where we're still and we're looking at a lot of architecture enhancements, and that's probably going to be in play in the future. But that's the main reason.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What images are they kind of unlocked as well now with the unlock?
So images have always been uh, unlocked.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to replace them or add them?
Well, I mean, this is something that I experienced along the way, and it seems to not be the case anymore. But if I did an export to make a change or whatever, and then you pull the book back in, if I took images offline they weren't Titan images, but like they would crash, they wouldn't come in, or they wouldn't display after we did the re-import. But if we duplicate now a Titan task, the images are going to roll over with it, no problems.
Yeah. Here, let's test that. Take a second. Yeah. So it duplicated it, add the parentheses 1 to the code and name and the
Yep.
images here. Then you can always go in and replace that or add another one.
Okay. So the one you created doesn't have the watermark, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is interesting on our end. But yes. So the watermark doesn't show up when you're just like a homeowner. The watermark is just kind of showing that you've got Pricebook Pro content when you're looking at it in this view. And we'll get if you export, it's kind of IP protection. If you export your Pricebook and share it with someone else, have the watermark, or it just won't upload the images. So that Pricebook Pro content is generally protected.
I feel like I'm dominating this conversation. I don't mean to be.
I'm totally here for it. I love having a conversation and answering questions.
Okay.
But happy, for anyone else to chime in. It sounds like everyone's happy to listen, but happy for anyone to chime in if you want.
Okay. Yeah, because I'll step out and I don't want to take over the floor here, but I've seen and I don't see it all the time, and I don't actually know exactly how to get it into the hands of the customer. But I've seen some PDF files like they're almost like sales sheets.
Mm-hmm.
I see them periodically, like tied to water heaters is kind of an example. I don't see how I translate that over to the customer when I don't know if that was something that was being tested, or if it's something that's growing and it's like a database of product manuals and things like that.
Mhm.
It was awesome. I loved when I found it. I don't know how, and then, of course, I know people that use Pricebook Pro too, and I asked him, and one guy I was talking to, he's like, I don't have that at all. So I don't know if that was just something being tested or if it's.
So I think that that's a fair assessment. It is there, it is available, and I'll kind of talk through that. For everyone else, I just want to show, find one. So what we're looking at here is.
And are those at
Pro
all
is created.
customizable to us? Like if I want to have a different verbiage that's more relevant to my unique install, is that customizable?
Today, that's not. There's feedback that comes in around these. Logo customization is obviously the biggest one, and then from there, verbiage customizability. And so that's something we hope to get to eventually. So our coverage of PDF one pages for the task is, I think, somewhere around 60 something percent, 60, 70%. The purpose of these is essentially kind of one page of like, you got to tell the homeowner we're doing the water heater. What does that entail? Why do we do it? Here's some really good reasons why you want to do that. And if you decide to wait, like what could happen. Some of these will also include some of the things you want to consider while we're doing that, if that's appropriate. The reason we did this is a lot of the feedback we heard is technicians aren't salespeople. They don't want to sell. And so, we're trying to arm some additional content. Like if the technician is just never going to be a good salesperson, at least have something that they can turn the iPad around and say, hey, like this kind of gives you a good idea of what we're doing. The way this shows up, and the way you would share this with the homeowner is within iPad, on when you add a service to the estimate, when you display an estimate, when you click into estimate details, you can scroll. You click on the photo to see it, full screen photo, right? And you can scroll through those multiple photos. The PDFs are attached through there. So if you scroll through the photos, then the last thing will be the PDF. And so you just be able to scroll. There's a PDF and show it to the homeowner. That's a way to make it work today. There's probably a better way to do that. We're gonna have a separate location where you could just grab the PDF and show it to the homeowner in the iPad with a new app that we're building. And then more recently, we added this to the email estimates. So if the homeowner says, let me think about this, send me the estimate, you can select attachments. Now we have a document center. So you can select the PDF and attach it. So when they get the estimate, they'll also have the attachment that comes with the email. So you could email this to them as well. The funny thing about these is we built these specifically to educate the homeowner. And I think what we're seeing is more often than not, companies are using these as training material for the technician.
Well, it's like a SOP. I mean, that's why I was asking if, we could customize it, because it's be my operating procedure in the palm of their hand and attached to their unique job type. It's great.
Yeah. And you can see on this specific water heater, we've got 3 different attachments. Here's another one, comparison between types. So, the customer's asking about differences. We've got some quick, easy to understand documentation that you could share. And then let's see what the third one is here. Another comparison within natural gas. So if someone's curious about what a low boy is versus power event. Again, this is either great internal training material for newer technicians, or kind of talking through the things that you want to highlight, or something that you can turn the iPad around and show the homeowner. And so, the majority of our Pricebook Pro services at this point have coverage on these kinds of things.
That's great.
If I'm being honest with you, I think our exposure of this feature is lower than it should be. Based on the questions you're asking, that means we need to do a better job to make sure that everyone knows that they're there and how to get to them. Because I think it's really high value stuff.
Definitely is. Definitely is. I have another question, if it's all right. With the catalogs, so I connected RE Michael, that became an available relationship, like through API, I guess. So I connected that account and I brought in their price book into my account. I also did Johnstone. You had mentioned the mapping earlier with relationship to descriptions and images and things that the vendor has. The descriptions are ridiculous in a lot of the, on their side, on their side. And, you know, so when a material comes in on an invoice, you know, it's like there's the description of the part, all this nonsense. So I don't know if there's like a quick edit way to fix some of that, or
I don't have a great solution for you on that today. I think the focus will be let's make sure that we can get those in, right? You have a handful of suppliers, but we really want to focus on getting critical mass coverage of all the suppliers, you know, all the customers are using. And in parallel to that, we want to work with the suppliers to improve the content. Like some suppliers are really good with descriptions and images, and some suppliers are terrible with them. And to an extent, we're kind of at that mercy. You know, some of our suppliers still aren't sending us costs. So I think there's kind of two approaches. These are entirely other businesses that we don't have, you know, that much control over. So we work with them to kind of incentivize and create improvement in there. And I think in parallel to that, we're exploring options where potentially ServiceTitan can create like a middle content layer that where we could kind of create a polished layer until you know, supplier partners can create improvement. That said, we do have
I found some toggle button that allows me to like block what they send in the auto update mode. So once I delete it, it's not like it gets overwritten, at least.
Yeah, that's a good call out. So within updates in Pricebook Connect, for anyone that isn't totally familiar with Pricebook Connect, this is our content management system. So catalogs, you can see, you know, these are different suppliers, and Pricebook Pro is a catalog within that. And this is how you can add, you know, more things to your price book. Let's say you want to, you know, go into roofing. I can select the entire roofing catalog and add it, right? And once those things are in your price book, we keep them up to date. Our suppliers also keep their content up to date. So within updates here, just give it a second to load. Let's see what this looks like. You can see these are all items from Pricebook Pro that have updates available. You know, just choose and see what that update was. The material cost change. I think this is a test environment, so that's you know, not real, but see if I can find something. I mean, you can see what it is. If you wanted to just select all and accept the updates, you can do that. If you wanted to do that individually, you can do that. But we have this automation feature where, let's say description in this case, you never want to accept the updates. You wrote your own descriptions, they're important to you, and you never want your supplier or the Pricebook Pro description. So we can just say auto dismiss, and you'll never get that. You still will be able to see that those happened, that those came through. If you go into this drop down here, you can see dismissed updates. So if you're ever curious, like what's coming through, I don't have in this example. You can also look at history log to see, you know, what changes you have made. And so you can see this was auto updated. So I never reviewed this. I just am letting it take control. In this case, an attachment was added to this item, and this is one of those PDFs. So you can see like that we did this on June 4th. We added attachment to this one. So we do have a little bit of a history feature here.
Back in that auto drop down where you get the whole list there, I don't understand what status is. And I didn't know if I should have that on or off in my account. I don't know what that refers to.
Yeah, so I believe we're
oh, active or inactive?
So I was 99% sure on that one that was active and inactive. I just wanted to bring the filters up just to double confirm before I answer your question. Okay. The reality is we're never going to send you inactive stuff. or we haven't ever done that. There's probably some weird obscure use case that, required us to add that from like some supplier where they wanted like an inactive default and you have to like make a decision to turn it on.
Yeah.
So it's really rare that you'll see something actually come through on that field specifically, but it's there.
Now,
And for everyone that's looking at this, I just want to be clear that manage manually is the default setting. This is my account that I play around with, and I have it on auto update. But today, everyone is set to manual, so you won't get your updates happening automatically unless you go in and select all on update, or if you change it over to auto update.
That's the only way to go, really.
Yeah. I think we're probably closer than not to changing our default to automatic. Our mentality was, your price book is a precious space, and I think there would be a lot of anxiety when we introduce this level of automation. So we thought, okay, let's kind of keep status quo, let people go decide if they like the updates and do that. But I think more and more people would love to, for the price book to basically maintain itself. So I think we're getting closer to a world where customers will accept that, we can do this for you.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, man. I've been on the price book journey a long time. This is really going fantastic.
I appreciate that. That's great to hear. The price book is a tough thing in general, regardless of the software you're on. ServiceTitan has taken it, 10 steps further than other softwares, where a lot of basically the operating system of ServiceTitan is built around the price book, right? The price book tends to be the heart of the software because it's the heart of your business. Selling comes out of price book. Accounting relies heavily on price book. Payroll, inventory, purchasing, reporting, memberships, right? A lot of other softwares, price book is kind of just like this side thing where, you kind of keep track of what you're doing and you sell off of it. There's not that deep of an integration. I think a lot of the efficiency and automations that happen across ServiceTitan are a result of that deep integration. But it also makes the price book super important, and the time you spend on the price book can be cumbersome for that reason. So I think historically, my spiel has been, yes, the price book takes a ton of time and maintenance to keep it up to date. Obviously, Price Book Pro cuts 90% of that. But it's probably one of the most important investments you can make in your business, right? You probably spend a bunch of time, renting or buying your space for the shop, and you probably spend a bunch of time deciding which truck to use to flesh out your fleet, and what shelving systems and what inventory you have on that truck, and hiring the right people, right? This is the same. I think the investment of your price book is on equal footing to those kinds of critical decisions you make in your business. With that said, now that we've got dynamic pricing and we've got configurable services, and we have enough weight in the industry where the supply chain is coming to us and asking to get involved, we can bring a whole new level of automation to where that spiel may not be as necessary. Yes, the price book still will continue to be that important, but the time you have to invest in it will become smaller and smaller as we can start to do a lot of those things for you.
Yeah. Now, with equipment sales,
yeah,
that's a struggle point for me personally. We use another software, Pricebook Plus, it's called, because they map the equipment, HVAC related specifically. They map it for the HRI, they map it for the tonnage, and this box goes with that box. And are we getting there, going there?
Yeah, so it's a good call out, and I'll be the first to admit that our equipment sales within ServiceTitan, not just Pricebook Pro, is on the weaker side. It basically, you have to manually build it out yourself.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't exist. I mean, it's not weak, it's just not there.
Configurable services is a step in a direction that will start to help. It's still not the solution, but you could create kind of on the fly bundles through it, where a technician can select you could you create a service, right? For like, um, you could do it by SEER or by, single speed or variable or whatever, and then, attach a few different condensers and compressors, so that, a technician can build that out. You would have to do that manually. Pricebook Pro, the automation side won't do that for you. And so you can just spend some time doing that, but you can create an environment where if the service is 14-SEER system, or whatever kind of your top level organization is, then there's a few options for compressor, a few options for condenser, et cetera.
Yep.
And you have costs in there. Technician can kind of configure what that system they're going to build is, and we'll price that out. The way I've seen this done really successfully is with two services. One is like your equipment system that you can configure that with equipment costs and your markups for those. And you add that, and then you create a labor and materials service, a second service. So it's like, labor material for 14-SEER. And then, let's say it's 10 hours for labor, and then, link all the materials that would be used for that job. And you can either create configurability for those materials if you think you want optionality on those, or if generally like you want to kind of pre-configure like an assembly, like generally all these same materials, or you're kind of okay with selling this stuff, and if you use one or two more here or one or two less there, within an install job, it's not a big deal. That's the way I've seen it built out pretty nicely in ServiceTitan, and we're actively exploring if we could start to move that direction and create that for Pricebook Pro. No promises, but we're trying to again weigh our priorities and opportunities that we can bring within the team size that we have, and that's definitely a bigger opportunity. I think longer term, I've created design concepts around full sales tools. We haven't made that investment yet. I do think that will come. I think it could show up in different iterations, but we're aware. If you want to try and create systems using configurable services, I'd love to hear how that goes for you, or to meet with you to kind of figure that out. I think it's worth mentioning lastly, I've seen a lot of people just create pre-built systems using proposal templates. And that's worked really well for a lot of people if you want to sell within service.
I do have templates, like whatever we named them, I don't even know, but it'll spit up 3 or 4 on a estimate. And then with the shitty part, I guess, for me is, my salesman's working in a different tool, and there's not a great transfer of data from one tool to the other. I get a name and address out of Titan into their tool. And if he sells a job, I can get the sold job summary back into Titan. Doesn't really bring in the part numbers. It's just painful. It's just painful.
Yep.
But on their side, to their credit, I know the pieces of machinery go together. I know they're matched for the, operationally, and they, with all the different features and options, this furnace with that coil, and it's a nightmare. So I don't, that's no easy lift for you, but it's a big bonus for us. So when we do, boilers, and we're in New York, so we have boilers here. That's easier for me. I've built out install kits, like you said, and now with configurable material and dynamic price, I can actually get my commodities to update on the regular automatically, rather than being this static $1,000 item. It'll move with the commodity. So that I like quite a bit. And it's only one choice for the equipment. It's like this machine or that machine. It's not a lot of variables. HVAC has got so many freaking possibilities. So, but it is a pain point for us.
Yeah, we don't have AHR matchup. We don't have, a proper load calculator like Manual J. And I think those two things are probably pretty strong prerequisites to build a really solid sales tool for HVAC. And I hope we can get there sooner or later for ServiceTitan. I know we're at time.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, man. This was a good opportunity to get a peek under the sheets, like they say.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. This was a great conversation. I think hopefully it's helpful for you, but it's extremely helpful for me to kind of really get into one, understanding if we're on the right track with some of the things we're doing. It feels like response, is pretty good. Testing kind of what our major investments could look like next year seems like you feel like that's good, and the questions you're asking are super super valuable for me. So thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. And
All right.
you'll email me so
Yeah.
I can pair you up with Chris and she can maybe get pointed in a direction or to a new person that can help her.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot.